Good afternoon. This is Jeff Finkel. I serve as the President and CEO of the International Economic Development Council. We'd like to thank you all for joining us for this webinar on Investing in Manufacturing Communities Partnership, Round 2. I am in IEDC's offices in Washington, D.C., and we have a room full of experts who were here darn near a year ago when we had a previous webinar that helped communities think through whether they should go through the effort and apply for this designation. But before, to introduce and kick off this webinar, we have Jay Williams on the line with us. Jay is the Assistant Secretary of the Economic Development Administration. Jay and I belong to a unique club here in Washington. We are some of the displaced Buckeyes from Ohio who are working in the field of economic development here in Washington. I've had the opportunity to know Jay in a couple previous roles, but he has had roles that make him very well equipped to serve in this position as Assistant Secretary. He is formerly a banker, and more importantly, he was a banker at the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. He ended up being the mayor of Youngstown, Ohio, and then President Obama tapped him to come to Washington and serve as the second auto czar. When the auto industry was having significant problems, Jay was brought to the U.S. Department of Labor to lead the, as auto czar, the recovery of the auto industry here in the States. He did a stint at the White House and I believe the Office of Public Liaison, or to deal with elected officials around the country. And then we were very fortunate as an economic development community to have Jay be named Assistant Secretary for the Economic Development Administration. Needless to say, Jay is very important to our community, and I am fortunate enough to be able to call him a friend. So with that, Jay, if you can take it from there, I would appreciate it very much.
Well, good afternoon, and Jeff, thank you for the very gracious introduction. I have always appreciated the insight, the wisdom that you shared with me in your personal and professional capacity. IEDC has been a fantastic partner and a long-standing partner to EDA, and we thank you for hosting us, and we look forward to continuing to work with you and all the IEDC members and aspiring members to advance the economic interests of communities across this country. We're particularly happy and excited to be talking with you all today about the Investing in Manufacturing Communities Partnership. America's competitive advantages as a country, as you know, are many. A strong and growing consumer-driven economy, world-class universities and research and development hubs, an educated and productive workforce, low cost and abundant energy, strong financial institutions, and a transparent and predictable regulatory environment, among many other attributes. IMCP is designed to reward communities that best highlight their strengths and demonstrate that they can combine their efforts around workforce training, infrastructure, and research centers to implement an economic development plan that will attract, retain, and expand manufacturing investment. And as you are all hopefully aware, manufacturing continues to be critical to the growth of the middle class in this country. Manufacturing supports over 17 million U.S. jobs. Manufacturing provides a variety of career opportunities. The average salary for manufacturing workers is more than $77,000, which is almost 20% higher than other similar workers employed in other sectors of the economy. We have seen the growth of manufacturing for the first time in this country in almost 20 years. Over 800,000 jobs have been added in manufacturing over the past almost 6 years during this president's time in office. And the president continues to make the growth, the expansion, and prosperity of U.S. manufacturing a cornerstone of his agenda. The Council on Competitiveness has said that the image of manufacturing as a dumb, dirty, and dangerous and disappearing is absolutely wrong. we all have seen that today's American manufacturing is smart, safe, sustainable, and indeed surging. By working together, we can continue to strengthen our ability to grow the manufacturing sector and create new economic opportunities in communities across this country. Last April, as a critical component of the Open for Business agenda at the U.S. Department of Commerce, Secretary Pritzker launched the Investing in Manufacturing Communities Partnership, or IMCP as it's often referred to. And again, that program was designed to improve the way the federal government leverages its economic investment in communities across the country. There were 12 communities that were designated in that first round, communities ranging from the Northwest Georgia Regional Commission, Wichita State University, the Cook County Bureau of Economic Development in Chicago, Illinois, the University of Tennessee, the University of South Alabama, the City of Rochester, New York. We had a IMCP community out in the Puget Sound Regional Council in Seattle, Washington, USC, the Center for Economic Development in Los Angeles, California, Milwaukee, Detroit, Michigan, Southwest Aerospace Region in Cincinnati, Ohio, and the Greatland Portland Council of Governments in Portland, Maine. These 12 diverse designated communities all demonstrated that they had solid plans in place to move their manufacturing sectors forward. In addition to that, they could sustainably benefit from coordinated federal assistance to support their plans. These designated communities exemplify the best practices at the local level that can be emulated in other manufacturing communities throughout the country. Now, we heard from all of the communities that participated in the application process that they benefited from bringing together stakeholders and understanding the strengths and the assets that existed in their region. In addition, for communities who applied but were not designated, EDA coordinated efforts to give feedback on how each regional consortium could improve its IMCP strategy. We are confident, and we've heard directly from a number of those communities that weren't designated in the first round, that they were eagerly anticipating an opportunity to again apply in the round that is currently open. The nearly 80 communities who applied were given a very tailored debrief, with more than half of the applications, half of the applicants taking us up on that offer. And last October, we at EDA hosted an exceptionally successful conference that brought together all of the applicants from the first IMCP competition. Now, just a few weeks ago, at the end of January, the Secretary of Commerce announced the second round of IMCP to designate up to an additional 12 manufacturing communities. That deadline, as hopefully you're aware, is April 1st, 2015, so it's rapidly approaching. The next group of designated communities will receive coordinated support from across 11 federal agencies, including the Commerce Department. Those designated communities will each also have a dedicated federal liaison from one of the participating agencies to help them navigate the myriad of federal resources that will be available to them. Today's session is designed to provide you with important information about the IMCP competition. We also want to make sure to answer all questions that you may have. IMCP is designed to support your locally supported bottom-up effort. Our goal with IMCP is to incentivize, reward, and highlight smart, comprehensive, and integrated economic development planning and capacity building at the local and the regional level. President Obama, the Secretary of Commerce, Penny Pritzker, and all of us at EDA are confident in our country's ability to make the most competitive products and provide the most competitive services, and our ability to play successfully on the global stage. To put it simply, we continue to be optimistic about our country's long-term growth, specifically as it relates to manufacturing. EDA is proud to be leading the IMCP competition, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. Again, I want to thank you for your participation and your engagement. Coming from a manufacturing community myself, I know firsthand how important manufacturing continues to be, and to see the growth of manufacturing and to see communities across this country apply for the IMCP designation, I think speaks volumes to the fact that we are succeeding in manufacturing in the U.S. I'd now like to turn the program back over to Ryan Hedgepath, who is EDA's point person and lead on IMCP, and Julie Winna. Thank you. Ryan?
Thank you very much, Jay. Again, my name is Ryan Hedgepath. I'm a senior advisor at EDA. Had the privilege of working on IMCP for well over a year now, and have met with many of you on the phone during the first round of the designation process. So again, just to really summarize what we're trying to do with IMCP is we're really trying to help accelerate manufacturing around the country by promoting bottom-up strategies between public goods and private goods. So we're trying to incentivize areas so that companies will decide to either relocate their companies from abroad, or for companies to decide to expand their operations at home. And again, as Jay mentioned, there are 13 federal agencies that are dedicated to this effort. A lot of the agencies offer aligned programming support, as you've read in the FRN, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Other agencies are providing critical technical assistance for our IMCP efforts. And again, what happens when you become an IMCP designee? As Jay mentioned, I won't reiterate all 12, but as you can see, it's a very diverse group of designees we had the first time. They range from coast to coast and everywhere in between. There was real diversity in terms of urban, suburban, and rural, and also a great diversity of manufacturing strengths that were exhibited by all 12 designees. Again, we're trying to reward communities to demonstrate best practices in attracting and expanding manufacturing. And what we're really trying to do at the federal government level is better synchronize federal investment dollars. There are many federal agencies that have a role in economic development. What we're really trying to do here is break down silos so that federal government can partner with each other, make it easier for regional communities to put together strong 21st century economic development proposals. We're going to designate up to 12 more communities in a couple of months. Part of what you get out of that is, first, you get some preferential consideration from many of the agencies identified in the Federal Register Notice. Each community will get a designated federal point of contact to help them navigate the federal bureaucracy and help them develop their economic development strategies. You'll receive, we hope, a good deal of branding and promotion as a manufacturing community. And last but not least, we hope that leads to some substantial funding from different federal government agencies. On the next slide, you'll see all of the aligned programs and their specific programs within the agencies. They go from Department of Agriculture to the Small Business Administration. And again, we get technical assistance from the Department of Commerce, Defense, Education, and Energy. As Jay mentioned, we made the last announcement on January 29th to announce the competition. Applications are actually going to be due on April 1st of this year. One of the things that we're looking for is we want applicants to, applicants get to define their own regional boundaries, which means, it's not the government telling a state or local institution how to organize themselves, but we're encouraging communities to organically develop partnerships that cross county lines, city lines, and in many cases even state lines. For example, one of our current designees, the Tennessee Valley Drive Consortium, is in 4 states. And so that's the kind of regional collaboration we're trying to encourage. So certain things that we're looking for. We're looking for strength from an existing manufacturing base. So we're not looking for regions that want to start a manufacturing strategy from scratch, but we're looking for a certain level of strength. We want them to be large enough to contain all the critical elements of their key technologies or supply chains, as evidenced by either jobs or firms. But we want the regions to be small enough to encourage or to enable close collaboration. So now we'll go to the next slide. And as everyone has seen in the FRN, there are really 3 parts to the application process. And the first of which is what we call the quality of implementation strategy. So we're looking for data-driven assessment of where your local industrial ecosystem is today, where your weaknesses are, what you want to make stronger, and we're looking for an evidence-based path to developing those strategies to make that region uniquely competitive. There are 6 pillars of the implementation strategy. The first is your workforce and training elements. The second will be your supplier networks. Third will be research and innovation. Fourth, we'll be taking a real look at your infrastructure and site development. 5 is trade and international investment. And 6 is operational improvement and capital access. And what we really mean there is the ability of your region to grow and garner private investment. That's part of what's really driving IMCP. And when we talk about the application and the methodology, for all 6 public good areas, we're asking you to look at your current capability. We're looking for you to identify your institutions for improving capability. What are your gaps? And what is your plan to integrate all 6 of those elements? The next thing we're looking for is capacity. So we're looking for regions that show the capacity to carry out their evidence-based assessment of showing their leadership capacity, their partnership structure, their partner capacity to carry out planned investments, the state of the ecosystems institutions, and the depth and breadth of communities' development and employment goals. And I want to stop here for a second and really talk about what we mean when we talk about leadership capacity. We're looking for regions to show that they have a track record of working together, working across a broad array of institutions, both public and private. So we're not looking for regions, but to some extent we're hoping that one of the things we encourage through IMCP is regions coming together and having a really holistic kind of 21st century look at economic development through all the pillars I mentioned a moment ago. But leadership is very important. So one thing we look for is a sound partnership structure, good overall leadership capacity, and so forth. The third part of the FRN talks about commitment. And what we're talking about here is a verifiable commitment from public and private stakeholders. In other words, we're looking for what your partners are bringing to the table that's not just saying, we think this is a good proposal, so we support it. But what are they bringing to the table that's tangible? It could be investment from a private company based on the strategy. It could be funding from the state or local government. It could also be a community college offering to tailor their curriculum to meet the needs of local companies and businesses. So that's an overview of what we're looking for in terms of the narrative. And so the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about, one thing I want to note is we have an ongoing, and it'll be even longer after today's session, but we have an FAQ on EDA's website that goes through a lot of commonly asked questions, and again at the end we'll take some questions as a group. And one of the things that we would encourage you all to look at is how you show that you rank in the top third in the nation. And our partners at ESA have done a really good job at helping communities around the country figure out whether or not they qualify by being in the top third for their selected manufacturing, technology, or supply chain. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Julie in just a moment, but I do want to note a couple of things that we've shared since we've had some time to go through the first round of designation competition. There were some takeaways we had as a review panel in terms of things that we would encourage communities to really take note of moving forward. So I'll talk for a little bit about 4 areas. The first area that we encourage communities to make sure that they take care of is strengthening their key technology and supply chain. So there were other times, a lot of communities had a KTS that was too broad, and the best applications, the winning designees, had a really strong top third key technology or supply chain. The second thing, which I alluded to before, but I can't accentuate enough, is the difference between commitment and support. It's great to have support letters from elected officials, from universities, from businesses, but what we're really looking for in the strongest proposals is articulating commitment, meaning tangible benefits that entity is bringing to the table, to the economic development strategy that have nothing to do with whether or not they achieve funding, things that are going to happen in that community regardless. That's really what we mean by commitment. Again, we can't emphasize enough the importance of a strong leadership structure, showing that you've done this before, that you have previous experience working together collaboratively. And the fourth thing I would note is making sure that that you have a good cost-benefit analysis in your proposals. A couple final notes before I turn it over to Julie. We did not say in the FRN the page limit, but we are looking for communities to keep their applications to the equivalent of 30 pages. But we want to devote some extra time today to a new application system that we're using called max.gov. So I look forward to hearing your questions. I thank you for being with us today. And I'm going to turn over to my colleague Julie Winner for the next few minutes of the presentation.
Thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon and good morning for those of you on the West Coast. My name is Julie Winner, and I'm a counselor and policy advisor here at EDA, and I work alongside Ryan, who has been leading this incredible effort for the past year and a half. This year we decided for round two, really wanted to utilize an electronic system to collect your information, to create for a more streamlined process. The first round we did it via email, but OMB has worked with us to create a system that will be very efficient and effective, and not only ensuring that it's less burdensome on you as the applicant, but on our end we're able to streamline the process for review and designate our communities a bit quicker. So in the FRN we published the link, which is here, www.eda.gov/challenges/IMCP. Here you're able to find the link for the IMCP eligibility screen. So this is two-part. One, you first have to go through the eligibility screen, and then you'll receive a token from us via OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, and that special unique token will be for your application. So let's go through the preliminary steps first, and then we'll go through the actual application tool. So on this first page, you'll see that you'll need to enter in a number. Here we've entered in 283, so that the system recognizes you as a person and not an automated system. After that, you'll then get this screen, and you'll just hit next. It's going to ask you for the name of your organization, the street address, the city, the state. So you'll just enter in some of the pertinent information, the contact information for your organization. In addition, you'll enter in your DUNS number if you have it, and you'll also enter in your EIN and email address. Please note that in the EIN area, if you don't enter in if you don't have an EIN number, then you want to enter in not applicable. It's very important that you put it in as N/A, because if you put just NA, you'll see the please check the format of your answer. So it's very important, and also above with the DUNS as well, it's very important that you enter it as stated, because the system will not process your eligibility application. We also ask that you confirm your email address as well to ensure that we have the accurate email address, because this is where your unique token will be sent. So, and then the final page here on the eligibility screen, this is when you need to enter if your organization is a district organization, an Indian tribe or consortium of Indian tribes, state, county, city, or other political subdivision of a state, or whether you're an institution of higher education, and there's one more, a public or private nonprofit organization or association, or none of the above. If you are if you meet one of these criteria above the none of the above, then you'll receive this message. Thank you for your interest in IMCP. Based on your responses, your organization is eligible. So you'll receive a preliminary eligibility notation. However, if your organization does not meet any of the 5 criteria and you enter none of the above, then you'll receive this, this prompt. Thank you for your interest in IMCP, but based on your responses, your organization is not eligible to serve as a lead applicant for a consortium to submit an application for designation status. So it's very important to make sure that your organization meets the criteria. Now we're going to move on to the actual application itself. After you've submitted the the eligibility screen, and if you've met one of the 5 criteria, you will then receive a validation token within 5 to 7 days, 10 days at max, but we're working on turning it around pretty quickly. This will be the first page of the application where you will need to enter in your token. From there, you'll begin the application. There are 8 sections to the application. So what we're going to do here is going to go through each of those 8 sections, and you'll notice at the top where it says 1 out of 3. So we'll have section 1, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, and 3 out of 3. What that is we just wanted to screenshot the entire application instead of just the top of the page so that you can see the full application for each section. So section 1 is your point of contact lead applicant. Again, here you'll want to enter in your point of contact for the organization, the name of the organization, the phone number, as well as the email address, the organization email address, city and state, zip code, and you're done or not applicable. If you look at the very bottom, we can take a quick look at the question index. Here we have section 1 where we are currently, the point of contact lead applicant. Section 2 is submitting official. Section 3 is geographic scope, top third requirement. Section 4, implementation strategy parties, federal financial assistance experience. Section 5, description of local industrial ecosystem and implementation strategy description. Section 6, performance measurement and impact evaluation. Section 7, optional files. Section 8, legal certification. You can flip between the different sections. You don't have to go in order. So we can jump to 7, you can jump to 5. You can jump around through your application. If you notice that resume later button, make sure you always select resume later. It automatically saves your responses so that when you enter in again through that unique token that you're given, you'll be able to pull up your application as you've entered and saved it. Let's move on to section 2 for submitting official. On this section, this is where you're going to have the document authorized by your organization stating that, you know, Jane Doe is the submitting official, is the lead applicant on behalf of that organization. Move on to section 3. This is now our geographic scope, top third requirement. So this is the section where you would identify critical elements of your key technology and your supply chain as prioritized by your team. Then at the bottom, you'll see also list all states and or territories included in your proposed manufacturing community. As Ryan stated earlier, the Tennessee Drive IMCP designated team is a good example of a community that has reached out to several states. So this is where you would include that information. You'd also include all the counties in your proposed manufacturing community and describe the regional boundaries. Finally, you'll see that the last part of this allows you to, in no more than 3 pages, provide a justification for why you believe your community is ranked in the top third for its identified KTS, including references for evidence supporting this assertion. So this is where you would include all of the information for your key technologies and your supply chain. Now we're going to move on to section 4, the implementation strategy parties and federal financial assistance experience. So this is the area where you would include all of your consortium members, folks that are going to be a part of your team in the application for the manufacturing community designation. And this is what that chart looks like. So you'll literally be able to go through the field, the name of the organization, the address, and so forth. Also, this is another opportunity, or this is the opportunity for you to include information, letter of commitment from folks within your community, and any memorandums of understanding that you have entered into as well. Now we're going to go on to section 5, description of local industrial ecosystem and implementation strategy description. Here, this is where this is the bonus weighting selection. You must select one of these elements that you want to focus on, as Ryan spoke of earlier, whether it's your workforce and training, your supplier network, research and innovation. So these are the different areas that Ryan spoke to earlier where you would enter your bonus weighting selection. Then here you would attach the assessment of the local industrial ecosystem and implementation strategy. So now we can move on to section 6, performance measurement and impact evaluation. This is where you kind of set your metrics in terms of how you expect to measure your success as a community. This could be through discussing the metrics of the number of trainees or the increase in your workforce development, average median wages, change in values of goods exported, or some of the public and private investment leveraged. And this is the chart you'll see. So you'll be able to include the name of the metric, the name of the project, time scale of metric, frequency of updates, data sources, and additional information on metrics. Section 7 is the optional files. In the first round, there were many communities who submitted additional documentation, additional letters of support, documents that may not be, that are not required, but that you may want to put forward for consideration. This is the place that, this is the opportunity for you to submit those additional letters of support or reference documents that may be helpful in making a determination for IMCP designation status. And finally, our last section is the legal certification, and that's just you stating that everything here is true under USC Title 8, Section 1001, that nothing is false here, nothing is fraudulent, and this is where you would certify that. Okay, so this is basically this is the application. We're going to IADC has been very gracious enough to make this available to you. After this, you'll be able to have access to it. Ryan and I can also send it to you if you reach out to us. I want to turn it over to Sarah Lee. Sarah Lee has been is the Principal Economic Development Manager in the Puget Sound Regional Council. She has been what we term a BFF, best friend forever. It's Sarah's words, not ours, but we've adopted it. She is one of the 12, she represents one of the 12 designated communities and has been leading many of the efforts in galvanizing the 12 communities to be extremely collaborative. So Sarah, if you don't mind, we're hoping that you could give some of your thoughts and your reflections on being an IMCP designated community.
Thank you, Julie. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. So I thought I'd better start that out the right way. Now, I know that the first thing that happens whenever a federal agency comes out with a FRN or an FFO, everybody looks at each other and says, this is great, and then they freak out because of all the work that it's going to cause. And usually, that is well-founded. I would have to say, though, with the IMCP program, our concerns were not as well-founded as you normally would expect. In fact, we got some benefits just by putting together the application. And I'm going to go over the different benefits, and hopefully you will all be cheering. And it's kind of weird as an ex-radio person, I have to say. I haven't been back in front of a microphone where I can't see anybody for a long time. But I'm assuming they're all sitting at the edges of your desks and just dying to hear what I have to say. So I work at the Puget Sound Regional Council, and when we saw this IMCP thing come across, we thought, oh, we do aerospace. And in fact, we already have a Washington aerospace strategy that was developed by the Governor's Office of the Aerospace. So we thought, hey, let's give that a shot. And we started putting together that based, looking through the lens of the IMCP application structure. At first, we railed against it because it talked about workforce and research and innovation and all these different things. And we thought, we don't put things in these different buckets. But we realized as we started putting it together, these actually were very logical buckets that we should start thinking a lot of our economic development planning that way. So we started with a project already, and we already started out with partners. We thought we knew everything and that we had everything together, but we didn't, because we had never really looked at what our manufacturing extension partnership, which is part of NIST, which is part of Commerce, and how they could help us. Because what they are all about is that they put together programs that help small and medium-sized manufacturers create and retain jobs and increase profits and save time and money. And with a median size of 98 employees for our suppliers, this was something that we had never thought about. So we got on the phone and called our MEP, and they came up with a couple of pilot projects that were incredible. And we've already secured funding for some of those projects. And we're realizing that that particular relationship is continuing to open new doors. The other piece that was totally surprising for us was that EDA did a summit back in D.C. Maybe some of you went there. We put together a pre-meeting, pre-reception with the other winners. And we thought, what can we learn from them? After all, you know, they're carpet makers or automakers and things like that. I have to tell you now that I was so full of it. I mean, just because they're totally different industries doesn't mean that you don't have anything in common. And in fact, we have started working together and have regular meetings every month and are working with each other on communications. We have a committee now that is putting together data needs. And what we do is it's just kind of nice to have somebody in another part of the U.S. you can call and say, hey, have you had this problem? That was incredibly worth it. And then there's one more thing before I get to the dollars. Everybody says, you know, one of the things that you have for the IMCP is you get points of contact. And as Julie says, we call them BFFs. BFFs, best friends forever. And I was a little skeptical about this because I don't understand federal government very well, and I don't know how to access various things. And I thought, well, if I don't call up a POC, a BFF, and they can't maybe tell me, oh yeah, we got this money for you, then what's the point, right? Actually, there's a whole lot more point to those federal BFFs than just money. Because you get on the phone with a BFF who's read your strategy, and all of a sudden you find that you are brainstorming on different ways that you can find money, or you're brainstorming and they're giving you contacts in other places of the region that have already done what you've done or that you want to do. It's incredible. The value of having someone in the federal government who will pick up the phone to give you honest feedback and solid advice is absolutely priceless. Now, there's also some money stuff that happened. When we have gotten 2 programs funded, one through the DoD Office of Economic Adjustment and another through Department of Labor that are part of our IMCP plan. That was totally unexpected. It happened way faster than I expected. We have got a lot more to do. And yes, this program is new and they've been feeling their way. And yes, you're going to have to write an application, and yes, it's a pain. However, I think of all the applications that I've written in my short life, this one was really, 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 really worth it. And I'll give it back to Julie.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We're very, very grateful to Sarah. I mean, she has really galvanized our 12 IMCP communities to work very collaboratively, and it was very important for Ryan and I to make sure that Sarah spoke with the group today so that you could, I mean, I know it's, you can always hear things from a top-bottom perspective, but we really wanted you to hear from a community that's actually being impacted. Next, we are very, very happy to have 2 of our federal points of contact at the Environmental Protection Agency who who have, I mean, they've done more than they are points of contact for our communities, which each community, as Ryan stated earlier, will receive a federal point of contact. But there also are interagency liaisons and just kind of working together on the federal funding opportunity side and also with the IMCP playbook. So I want to turn it over to Tom Murray, who's our biologist and senior science advisor at EPA, and Charlie Barsh, who's the senior advisor for economic development at EPA. John?
Good afternoon, good morning to folks. What I want to do is just give you a 5-minute tour, if you will, of the PlaceBased Playbook that we put together for the IMCP. We put it together originally last year, and we've updated it, we've revised it for this round, and I'll mention a couple of those updates as we go through. You can find the PlaceBased Playbook at the address that you see at the bottom of the screen, www.manufacturing.gov/IMCP. You can also link to it from the EDA IMCP site. Your interest in IMCP illustrates for us, I think, that you want to develop and implement the best strategy possible that will lead to your community becoming a globally competitive one with a rising, thriving middle class. And this place-based playbook we wrote for you is designed for you to help you reach that goal. When you open the playbook, you will see the diagram that you see on the slide in front of you. We're going to stay with this one slide, and I'm just going to walk you through this. We're not going to go through link by link. I hope that you can do that at your leisure. What I'm going to do is just provide a few highlights as we go through. When you reach this page in the playbook, the first thing that you're going to see is what we consider to be the basic building blocks of a good place-based strategy. We've talked a little bit about this already during the webinar. First is building a strong and complete backbone organization. Who's going to be your leader? How do you build for her or for him a partnership designed to succeed? Secondly is conducting a self-assessment. This is more than simply where you are now and where you want to be. It's more an expression of a well-thought-out analysis that clearly demonstrates that you carefully analyzed your situation and with your parties have a sound game plan for getting to your goals. And then finally, the third block, we present for you tips on creating that strong and very persuasive, what we like to call a tune-up strategy for your community. When you click on each one of these boxes, you will find a variety of relevant programs and resources and helpful hints that we've pulled together for you to guide you on your way. When you scroll down from that, you'll see the 6 pillars that Ryan mentioned. Within each one of these blocks, we include things that you might want to consider as you address these key activities and key areas for the IMCP. The considerations that we present to you, we do so in the context of a SWOT analysis, or strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And for each set of considerations, we include here also a list of resources and helpful hints for each one of these particular pillars. And then finally, at the bottom of the chart shows several green boxes that speak not only to where you would like to be to compete successfully for IMCP designation, but also how you might more effectively share your hard work with non-federal partners and impact investors and foundations and other private investors. In fact, one of the things that we've done this year in the playbook, and a new edition, is that we've included a financing guide which can be accessed from the playbook's homepage or by clicking on the green box to the right of this diagram. And what this guide does is it presents step-by-step guidance on how to get started with seeking supplemental funding or financing for your community initiative from non-federal sources. The financing guide also profiles 3 emergent and underutilized financing mechanisms that may be of interest to you, including industrial development bonds, program-related investments, and pay-for-success financing. So we believe this will be helpful as a helpful addition to the playbook. We hope to take a look at this in particular and get back to us with your thoughts on how we might be able to make it better for you. Also, they're new to the playbook this year. Is a link to the various presentations that were given back in October at the summit that was mentioned earlier. You can access those from the playbook, from its homepage. We've also included additional resources from several different federal agencies, including from EPA. A lot of our Energy Star program material is now in the playbook. Department of Education has provided additional links as well. And under the tune-up strategy block up at the top right of this diagram, we've also added a list of additional performance and impact investment resources that were developed by a special interagency IMCP evaluation committee that's been working over the last several months to put that together for you. So again, that will be in the tune-up strategy box when you click on it. So that is a very quick 5-minute run-through highlighting the playbook. Please read it if you can. I think it will prove helpful to you. If you find things lacking, please get that information back to us. This is an open document. We want to make it the best we can make it, and we will look at those comments and incorporate those comments for you into the playbook. So with that, I'll pass it on back.
Thank you so much, Tom. Okay, and now we're going to turn it over to Ryan as he leads us in our question and answer session.
Well, Tom, thank you, and Charlie for being here today and for all the work you've given to this effort. You've been very, very meaningful partners with EDA for IMCP. So what I'm going to do now, so that we're not trying to type all the answers in, I'm going to read some of the more commonly asked questions and do my best to answer them along with the help of my colleagues. If on this slide that you see up here right now, if we don't get to your question today or we don't have an answer today, we have our email addresses up there where you can reach us. We're available to you anytime to talk. So let's go through some of the questions here. We'll start at the so the first question we'll talk about is how would companies demonstrate commitment to the project to be most meaningful? Do they need to commit in writing a specific number of jobs and/or investment? If so, over what time period? Is there any penalty if they don't meet those commitments? So the first thing I would say about the question is those are two perfect examples of what you want to talk about for commitment from a company in your proposal. So those would definitely be very meaningful in your proposal. The time period we're looking for is growth over a 5 to 10 year period. So we're looking at short and medium term goals. But there isn't a penalty if they don't meet those commitments. Now, one thing I'll say to communities that are aspiring to be designated, that the designation period lasts for 2 years, and we are going to encourage all of our communities to keep their designation, and that designation will be based in large part on the data and the plans you lay out in your proposal. So to the extent it's important to be able to show that you've met the commitments that you've made, that's important, but there's not necessarily going to be a penalty if you don't meet those commitments. Another question is, are the top third LQ rankings currently linked from the FAQs page? What we do have is a useful tool developed by ESA to help you determine if you meet the top third. There are some examples there. I believe you'll also find a data tool which can help you research about different manufacturing communities. So all of that can be found on our website. Another question is, which round 1 designees receive funding from the participating federal agencies post-IMCP award? I can tell you that we haven't, since it's a new program, we don't have a complete holistic sense of funding, but what we've heard from our points of contact is that I think it's safe to say that many, if not most, of our designees have received funding from some of the participating agencies. So we've seen some success, as Sarah Lee mentioned. She gave 2 examples of what the Puget Sound was able to secure in large part to their efforts on IMCP. But that's something that we're going to be tracking so we can report to folks on a regular basis. But again, this is a new program. But Charlie has a few comments on that topic as well.
Just on that question, this is Charlie Bartram, EPA. Our funding cycle for brownfields and area-wide planning runs on an annual basis, so we are just now getting through our first cycle, since the IMCP designees were named. We've got some preliminary decisions made, and the announcement is expected in a couple of weeks. And I can tell you that there are going to be several winners in that announcement who were IMCP community applicants, and the special factor consideration that EPA has in its program in terms of our competitive evaluation was part of that decision-making process for those winners that we're going to announce. So the bottom line is, yes, this does matter. The designation does matter.
Thank you very much, sir. That's a very helpful clarification there. So the next question we'll tackle is, does the same team review all the proposals? How is the review team comprised or composed? So just to give folks some context, during the last competition, we received 77 regional applications. So these weren't 77 cities or towns or even counties, but these were 77 regional applications, which showed how much interest we had. To tackle that review process, we had a review team made up of all our interagency partners, both policy experts, technical experts in the programs, review. What we had to do in order to tackle, we couldn't have reviewers review all 71 applications that made it to review, but we broke the applications up into groups for 7 review teams. Then we went through a really rigorous process of review where the review teams reviewed their proposals. We asked all the teams to get together and talk about their scoring within their own teams. And then as a final step, we brought everyone that reviewed the applications together to discuss the application that rose at the top, and we recommended those to the Assistant Secretary who made the designations last May, along with Secretary Pritzker. So another question that I think a lot of folks are interested in is, what happened to the challenge grants from the last round? Is that going to be part of IMCP moving forward? So where we are with IMCP is it was originally a vision to be a large grant program. But as all of you know, or may know, the funding for IMCP hasn't been yet appropriated by Congress, so we're not able to actually give out direct grant funding for being an IMCP designee. But what we're focusing on is aligning all of our federal agency partners to give funding from their different buckets to folks' strategies. And in terms of how that's going to look moving forward, that's a conversation I think we're continuing to have with our appropriators. We will see at some point in the future if we're able to give some direct funding for being an IMCP community, but at this point we are trying to focus our efforts on helping folks access current funding from our aligned programming partners. About linking next year. I want to come back to that. Another question that'd be good to talk about is our regional collaborative does not have an MOU or formal agreement. Is one type of organization better or more effective than another? I would start by saying, answering the second part of the question, it's really up to the consortium to pick who's going to be their lead submitting official. But one of the things we do look for is a strong partnership structure. So, one of the ways you can show this is by using an MOU. So that would be one way you show your partnership structure and leadership structure. So that would be my best answer to that question there. Let's see. Is the actual application scoring from the last round available? That isn't and this is pretty common throughout the federal government, I believe, that the actual scoring of applications is not something that federal agencies generally make public to folks at large. What we can do is talk to you at length about what makes up a good proposal. We've had webinars in the past. As I alluded to in my opening comments, we've had webinars for communities that apply to try to give them general tips. We also offered in-depth one-on-one debriefs with round one applicants, and we plan to do that again with the next application round. But we're not really in a position to actually give the scoring. So another person asked, we submitted an application request and more than 10 days have passed. Should we request access again? We have found that we had a bit of a technical glitch with OMB Max that we believe we have fixed. So if you have done the first initial screen and haven't received your token to go for your application, please email me and Julie, and we'll get that figured out. But that was a glitch that we recognized this week was happening. But my understanding is that we have worked with OMB and they have fixed that.
Right, and so check your email, Dottie, and see if you received something yesterday about 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. OMB assured us that that's when they sent out. So look at the 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you still don't have anything, then certainly let us know.
So are all 13 federal agencies treating the IMCP designees the same way in terms of preference and concierge service? So in terms of service, yes, we are striving, all of our federal points of contact are striving to give a high level of service to their designated communities. The first part of the question is a bit more complicated because, you know, every agency has its own regulations in terms of whether or not they can even give preference. Many of the programs do give specific preference for being an IMCP designee, but what has also helped many communities, as Ms. Lee alluded to earlier, is that going through this kind of vigorous process of an application has set up communities, both designated and ones that didn't get designated at this point, to apply and be competitive for many of our aligned programs.
Yeah, this is Charlie again. Just to reiterate Ryan's point, I mean, each of the programs, you know, is governed by its own statutory framework and its own rules. And I think one of the things that we're doing in the work group, and I just want to mention that one of the things that's been very good about working with EDA is, you know, we talk about partnerships all the time, and we have a real true partnership here at the federal level. So I wanted to thank you guys for that. But to get back to the question, you know, one of the things we're trying to do working through the federal partners is to figure out ways in which some of these manufacturing activities can fit within the statutory and programmatic frameworks, you know, to allow for either special consideration, special factor, or preference point, or whatever might be possible in the existing framework. So there really is no way for all of them to be equal, but what we're trying to do is to really make sure that each agency can give as much as it can within its framework.
Thank you, sir. So can you provide the participants a copy of the slides and a list of participants? Yes, we will post all of that. We'll have that link to our website, so people will be able to have access to that as well. Let's see. So let me address someone's question. I believe they're from South Texas, and they asked if, in determining their top third requirement, can they include a city in Mexico that's an important part of that regional economic development system? It's a very important question. It's one that I actually haven't had to deal with before. So that is one that we'll have to get back to you on. And again, Mr. Gonzalez, you have our emails there so we can follow up with each other. But I'm just not sure of the answer to that question. But do recognize that that's an important consideration for your part of the country. So thank you for that. Someone asked, are you able to share one or two examples of what you believe are good MOUs? We can certainly work to do that by going through our previous proposals. We may have to redact some information, but again, it's just a basic MOU you've probably done in your economic development work or partnership work where you show that you are working together and you explain your leadership structure and partnership structure. Does our EDA region impact the likelihood of a designation? The answer to that is no. We treat all applicants equally across the 6 EDA regions and with our federal partners. There's no benefit from being in one region or the other. You know, we think and know that manufacturing is happening across the country, and as we saw from the 12 designees we listed at the top of the hour, there's a real diversity in terms of every part of the country and both coasts and everywhere in between, and a real diversity of both rural, urban, and suburban, as well as a real diversity in manufacturing technologies. Someone asked, what was the funding amount awarded to the 2 programs for Puget Sound? I can work with our BFF, Sarah Lee, to see if we can get that. But again, the more important answer I would give is that we are working as an interagency team to really do a really thorough job of collecting the successes of IMCP designees in terms of getting federal grants. And as we can collect that information, we will definitely find a way to share that through our website. But again, this is something that's still new. Many of the programs that are aligned haven't announced their competitions yet for the year. So it's something that's really going to take a year or two to really begin to answer, as opposed to in the immediate term. Can a regional EDD serve as both the lead entity and the primary consortium? That's entirely up to you. There's nothing discounting that from happening. As long as they're an eligible entity and meet one of the requirements of what makes up a good consortium, that would be fine. And unless I'm missing, I think we've tried to go through and answer all the questions we have here. But again, we are available in the future. Our emails are listed on this current slide. We know that we're asking for a lot of information, and we're willing to work with you as federal partners to help you apply.
Great. Thank you very much, Ryan. This is Jeff Finkel again. I'm looking at Karen Pollard's question, and at some point I'm actually going to turn that into a joke that I will use at a later point. How many economic developers does it take to screw in a light bulb? I don't know the answer to that today, but I will. Don't be surprised if you hear me try to throw that into a speech at some point. You know, as Ryan and Charlie and some of the other people here in this room were here a year ago, one of the things that Matt Mullen reminds me that I said at the end is as important as winning the designation is at least thinking about the process that these agencies are asking you to go through. Many years ago, I was with the federal government, and I worked on the Enterprise Zone program. It later became the Empowerment Zone Enterprise Community Program, and ended up doing consulting to some of the communities who were not successful winning Empowerment Zone's Enterprise Community designation. But one of the things that we learned in that process is that just going through it, collaborating with within the region, identifying where you thought your strengths were in the Empowerment Zone Enterprise Community context, you know, thinking about your manufacturing base and how you can possibly use the tools that might be available under the IMCP program, and undertaking this process, it could be very important, could be as enlightening as winning. Winning is always good, as we say, but, and I'm sitting next to Julie, as I say that. So I would encourage you to look very carefully at this. One of the things that I'm also going to do as we leave and close this down is remind everybody that IEDC's legislative conference is coming up March 29th through 31st. Unlike the last time, there was time for Ryan to actually come and speak before the deadline for the last IMCP program. This time it's the day afterwards, and so coming and seeing Ryan and learning with additional wisdom from him probably won't be helpful, because you will probably have had to already box up your proposal and send it in by the time our legislative conference. Jay Williams will be with us, as will many other speakers, so we hope you will join us. We appreciate everybody spending time with us today. We appreciate all of our federal friends that have come to the IEDC offices and joining us, and to Matt and Asmite for putting this together. Everybody have a great weekend. Thank you very much.